Dead No More, Patient Zero, Chapter 21, Stupid Decisions. The door opened, and Rodriguez walked out. "We've reached a decision," he said. Em and I steadied ourselves as we walked through the door of the meeting hall. It was amazing, but somehow Em and I had developed a type of telepathy between the two of us. It was like our minds danced. Her thought, my thought, her thought, my thought, was how our mental two-step progressed. Eli had observed us earlier, sharing knowing glances without saying a word, and pieced it together. He deduced that we were somehow communicating without speaking. "So you two can read each other's minds now?" asked Eli. "This is unbelievable." We walked in the hall, and it was full of disappointed and frustrated faces. This family, my family, was being torn apart by me, and there wasn't a damn thing I could do to stop it. I never meant to hurt anyone, and I certainly never intended to end the world. "Doc, I'm speaking on behalf of this group to let you know that we did not come to this decision lightly," said Andre. "All we have to this point about this serum is your word, and right now, your word doesn't carry much weight with some of us. We decided that you should be banished from the 3 settlements. Further, we will leave it up to each person individually as to whether or not they want this serum. What you propose is illogical and unattainable if he does not wish it," said M. "How do you propose to force an immortal to do anything? Marvin allows an obsequious, tenuous belief that you have a decision in what transpires and what he decides." They all looked around the room confusedly. She said, "As an immortal, Doc doesn't have to abide by anything you decide, and he definitely doesn't have to give you the serum," said Eli. "What?" That was one of the largest concerns. Doc was already a larger-than-life figure around here. Hell, he rescued most of the people in this room. But he also fucked the world up. Add immortality to the mix, and how long would it be before he begins to behave as if he were a god? Asked Diane. No one should have that kind of power. Di, I am the same person, but with an elevated mental acumen and denser muscularity and bone structure. My mitochondria fire at an accelerated rate, and my antibodies low, are self-sustaining. But I am still me, I said. I am me, but more, much more. We also decided that anyone who wishes to go with you is free to do so, but once they leave, they will not be allowed back at any of the settlements, said Gerald. It has to be a clean break. You will be allowed a few vehicles and some supplies. Wow, that is very generous of you to give my dad some of his own stuff, quipped Joshua. If it wasn't for him, you would all be dead. If it wasn't for him, none of this would have happened, said Tim. I'm just being honest. I have mad respect for the doc, but he screwed the pooch on this one. I don't think you all understand. There are only 30 doses of the serum. I think only those who leave with me should have access to it, I stated. There is still no certainty what type of, if any, mutation will occur. We will need a mind advanced enough to deal with that type of evolution. Squawk, I repeat, something is not right, said Brian over the radio. There is a herd following a bear, not chasing it to eat it, but actually following it, and it is coming this way. I looked at Em and Eli. I was afraid this would happen, I whispered. Em nodded in agreement, as if she knew what I was thinking, but Eli looked stunned and puzzled. I'm not following, said Eli. You two seem to have developed some sort of telepathy that allows you to communicate without speaking. But I need to hear the words come out of someone's mouth. Listen, everyone, I said as I addressed the assembly. There is an 84.63544% certainty that an evolved homeostasis mutate is at the core of this situation. Our antagonists are certainly most likely the culprits. But without additional input, a thesis or theorem is nearly impossible to calculate. Again, everyone looked at Eli. "Hey, don't look at me," he said. "That shit went over my head this time too. Can you simplify it for us, Marv?" That was simplified. What Em and I do to communicate would fry their brains. I took a deep breath and spoke as plainly as possible. What Brian is looking at is most likely not a bear, but the mutated form of either Cyrus or Cisco, I said. Without more data, it is virtually impossible to pinpoint exactly what mutations they may have contracted. Whatever the case, I doubt our guard detail will be able to handle it. "So, what are we supposed to do?" asked Rodriguez. "I'll follow your lead, Doc." "Well, with the Council's permission, there are 2 of us," I began. "3, interrupted Em. "No, Em, there are 2, I said firmly. "Do you really want to argue with me right now?" She shot into my brain even more firmly. "I stand corrected. There are 3 of us immune to bites. But Tank is the only one of which they are aware," I said. "We can use this to our advantage." "But Marv, one look at you and Em and you'll know instantly that you look like Tank," said Eli. I walked over to the whiteboard as I began to explain, "That's because you are looking at the benevolent mutations as a given quantity when they aren't. Tank is a mutate unto himself, but Cisco and Cyrus are in the same group. I am a subset of both, as I received samples of both serums, as well a cocktail of my own serum. Em and the baby are a subset of me, and the serum we pulled from our child is a subset of that. Each will most likely cause a different level and quite possible aspect of a given mutation, benevolent or otherwise. So, any one of us may or may not derive any, all, or none of the mutations that you received," asked Joshua. "Or you may receive them all, but to a lesser degree," I retorted. "Now, as I was saying, we know that both Tank and I are immune to bites and can extrapolate that Em is as well. Let us address this herd." "This won't change our decision," snapped Diane. "I wouldn't suppose that it would," I responded. "But if Cyrus or Cisco is heading this way and has received the benevolent mutation of an advanced brain pan capacity, they may know that this site is here. I'm leaning towards it being Cyrus, as he has been here before. Even though he was blindfolded, he might be able to determine the location from 3-dimensional spatial memory. The 3 of us exit from the hatch that led us out a little ways away from the bunker, as we did before, when Jacob approached. Tank approached him straight ahead. It was Cyrus, and he had mutated, but not as cleanly as Tank, Em, or I had. He was covered in moss, and his skin was a pale, chalky white. He looked to be a little heavier than Tank, but more hunched. But what happened next, had I not witnessed it myself, I might not have believed it. "You can't come any closer." "Turn around now, Cyrus," yelled Tank. "You're not the only one that can yell, you bastard," yelled Cyrus. "And the name is Grundy, Solomon Grundy, 'cause I rose on a Monday," he yelled. The DCs seemed to ignore Cyrus or Grundy, or whatever the hell he called himself, and began to advance on Tank. Tank began to employ the self-defense techniques that he had learned since arriving at the compounds. He kept the DCs grouped in front of him and used their numbers against them. They crowded against one another as Grundy looked on, screaming at them. It was evident that he didn't control them as much as got them to follow him. But without noise, they treated him like any other DC. Tank at first was able to hold his own, but the bites were slowly taking their toll on him. I stepped forward after convincing Em to be our ace in the hole if needed. She fell back under cover of the foliage and waited to assist Tank with his wounds as he healed at a much slower pace than we did. Haven't you heard Cyrus or Grundy? With great power comes a spanking new ass-kicking. I yelled to motivate a fading tank. I mowed down the DCs near him as he disappeared in the leaves of the forest to make his way back to M. Look at you, Doc. You went and got better too. But you can't beat me, he sneered. Not when I can create DCs.